right now. Okay. So we have two Milken alum here, and we're going to have another one joining. She's just finishing out class. But since it's a small group, like, you can feel free to keep yourselves unmuted as long as you're not somewhere with a ton of background noise. And I'm hopeful that this will be more of a discussion instead of me kind of monitoring a panel. And you guys, I believe, are both, you're both admitted students. So you really are making a decision and can, I hope, use the information that the alums are going to be able to give you. So it's really exciting. Or I know, Adam, you're on the wait list, right? Yes, I'm your counselor. I should know that. That's embarrassing.
Yes, I currently am. I've been emailing back and forth with Lee Stork just about everything. So yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, it's great that you're here. So that if you are taken off the wait list, you can make a decision quickly. All right, so I guess we'll start with Jesse and then go with Gabby, and I'll ping pong between both of you. Just kind of introduce yourself, when you graduated Milken, and if you have a declared major at GW. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Hey, Jesse, you guys probably saw me on campus. I graduated just last year, so pretty new to everything in terms of, just being still a freshman in college, just finishing out the year. But right now, I am technically a graphic design major, but still like just finishing out the year, kind of a little bit more feeling undeclared in terms of how I'm pursuing things. So I'm still going to be exploring a little bit more.
All right, Gabby, you're up.
Hi guys, I'm Gabby. I have been out for a while. I graduated from Milken in 2013 and from GW in 2017. I was a psychology major, and I am currently back here in LA. I'm a PA student at USC. So I've had some time, regular campus life, as well as doing school again virtually. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of both perspectives.
And Gabby, I wonder what things you were involved in, like what took up your time while you were at GW?
Yeah, for sure. So I was a psych major, so that's all of those things involving that. But I also did do a lot of kind of pre-health, pre-med type stuff as well, adjacent to that. I was also what they had called, which I think fell under the maybe the psych umbrella, it's called a mind-brain studies minor, which was kind of an emphasis on cognitive neuroscience. And I did work in one of the labs with PhD students at that time. I also worked on what is called eMERGE. It's the emergency medical technician, completely student-run group. I worked as an EMT in college, and I was also in a sorority. So I was busy.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. So Jesse, in making the decision of where to attend last year while in a pandemic, what were the things that led you to BU? Oh my God, I'm not even doing the BU chat. What are the things that led you to GWU?
Yeah. To be fully honest as well, I was lucky to be able to actually go and visit the campus once in the fall prior to everything going down. So I had a little bit of a general perspective on at least what it felt like, at least what it looked like. So I wasn't going in completely blind. The campus itself, going in, choosing, it was between two places, GW and Fordham were my two choices in the end. I just had a generally better feeling, and also a lot more people were reaching out from GW, and it was a lot more, the general community was a lot more talkative there in terms of reaching out and just seeing anyone who was admitted. People were excited to see who else was going, even if it was, still pre payments. So getting to just generally see who everyone was definitely helped push it along a little bit more, just seeing the personality of people. But yeah, a lot of people were very welcoming, very inviting. Lot of people to talk to. I actually, funnily enough, the first people that I actually met were sophomores, and got to meet them through some interesting random things that they had advertised on one of the Facebook pages, and talked with them for a good 2 or 3 months even before I actually fully applied.
So you engaged in some of that online programming as an admitted student also?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you would encourage our seniors
Yeah.
to do the same?
Yeah, probably a little bit, definitely. If you guys have any questions as well, like I have a bunch of resources for you guys, or people that if you would like to, I could see if they'd be willing to talk. I have a bunch of different friends and stuff that are in different areas and realms, so that's an easy thing to kind of like if you want to get a gauge for what things are like right now in terms of workloads and exactly what's going on.
Well, I'm going to lean on Gabby for that and ask about, I mean, what did draw you to GW? And then, the things Jesse felt like he was getting a sense of, did that ring true to your experience?
Absolutely. So yeah, I obviously am kind of not the best person for what's happening now. And my heart goes out to you guys because it's really hard to make these types of decisions in general, and to do it in this setting is just so frustrating. And so I hear you, because I started graduate school in the middle of all this last year because I'm a first year PA student. But GW students are very unique in that sense that like he said, like people are going to captivate you. It is an active campus and people have a lot of opinions. Whether you think that's positive or negative, that's just the kind of person you are. But going to GW is a very full immersive experience, regardless of whether or not you are a political person. I was not involved. I was not a poli-sci major. I was not an international affairs person, but you do, you find yourself definitely involved either one way or another. You're aware of what's going on, and there is something exciting about being where you are that captivates you in the city. But even doing so online, I think would give you a similar vibe, because there is something to the GW student that is very curious, is very, very engaged. And that's a really nice community to be a part of. And I really felt that with pretty much every different thing that I got involved with at school, which were very different, all things very, very different.
And how did the city of DC play into your college experience?
Oh boy, DC is fun. I liked it a lot because I mean I love back in LA and I love LA, but I wanted something a little bit different. And I liked the East Coast, but I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be a New York person. I think that's a little bit much for me. And I felt like DC was kind of like a nice approachable New York in a way, with definitely a different vibe, of course, but it's great being in a city where you still feel like you know when you're on campus at GW, you know you're there, and like it's not like completely open. I mean, you're not like gated in like you would be at like a school like, I don't know, like Indiana or Michigan or something like that. But the city is such a learning experience on its own, and there's so much that you can do. Like like my freshman year dorm is like 2 blocks from the White House. Like you could just on a whim be like, I'm gonna walk down to the National Mall, or like this weekend I'm gonna go to the Smithsonian's, or take a car and go to like some of the really beautiful national parks. There's a lot happening there that you could stay insulated in the school if you want to and be very busy, but also a lot that you can branch out to do. And so I was really never bored, in a way that was also very accessible and not too overwhelming.
And Jesse, you mentioned that, I mean, you already have a lot of connections and lots of friends in multiple different areas. Was that challenging given the pandemic, or did it happen pretty naturally?
I'd actually say that the pandemic arguably kind of fostered more people trying to reach out to people, because it wasn't like you are staying in your areas. It's just people trying to find people was more so the case. Uh, a lot of people made some community servers and some stuff for people to just hang out on. There's one that I'm actively on and have a lot of friends on. Like it started maybe last July and has like naturally grown to 250-ish plus people, like ranging between like current freshmen and a few juniors, I think, as well as some sophomores here and there. But like this, it's like a pretty naturally built community, and everyone's really just trying to like reach out and find people. And yeah, like also just like echoing what Gabby said, everything really is walkable. Like while I was there, like I even was able to go recently to go and be able to visit. And I even met up with some friends that were still at the dorms. First night that I got there, I flew in very late at night, said, "Hey, do you guys want to meet up?" They said, "Yeah, sure." Immediately they were like, "Oh, let's do a walk around the monuments." 5-10 minute walk away, you're already at the National Mall. 2 hours later, you've done every single monument, just walking around, just hanging out with people. It's a really easily walkable place that I personally could not imagine getting sick of, in terms of just it, if you're with friends, it's just very easy just to get along and just be there.
Adam's coming back. He's having trouble with his audio.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we lost someone. I hope we didn't bore them. No, Jesse, are you living in DC?
No, I'm actually in LA, but the reason why I went is I got lucky and was able to procure 2 shots, so I was feeling a little bit better in terms of leaving LA.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what they've said. Hopefully, they're gonna have you guys back on campus next year, but you will not get bored of it.
Yeah,
you absolutely will not get bored of it.
From what I've heard weird mixed conflicting things in terms of in-person courses. I've heard a lot of people saying that it is going to be mixed. I know that there's going to be at least like there is going to be in-person and hybrid. That's going to be some courses, if the teachers make enough of a case for it, that they might be like, if it's a big lecture, for example, it might be made online and or hybrid so that it can accommodate a lot more people. But that there are some courses that are going to be in person, some that are just solely online. But they're hoping to get most of the campus in person, if not like at least like a decent amount, like a majority.
I hope they do. I hope they do for you guys.
Yeah, I think it'll certainly be better than this year, and you'll have some campus component at least.
Yeah.
And what has, what have courses been like? I mean, aside from the fact that they're online, in terms of workload and level of rigor, are they what you were expecting, or what has that adjustment been like?
I'd say it's been what I've been expecting. For the most part, some of them are a lot easier. Some of them are harder. Again, like also like I have a weird perspective because the majority of the courses that I've taken this year are oriented around graphic design. So at least in terms of the artistic perspective, there's a lot more rigor involved and a lot more scrutiny in exactly what is being produced. But in terms of I think I've taken about 4 or 5 classes right now that like about half like the amount of classes I've taken total are like regular like gen ed classes. They've been pretty on par. I remember ending last semester with majority A minuses, and that was with admittedly not very much effort into my work. I could have put more into it for some of the courses, but it ended up being like pretty easy. But like still, like it was a lot of work. It was a decent amount of work. It just, for the amount of effort that I put in, it definitely felt a little bit easier.
And I mean, you mentioned changing your major. Is that going to be really easy for you? Is it going to be difficult? But I'm sure you're not the only.
Yeah. Staying in, like if I was to try and get into an art major, it'd be a little bit more difficult because everything getting into it is a lot more specific and time sensitive, because you're having to take a lot of very long classes that are like very scheduled and oriented for like you have to do like this one followed by another, and it's very scheduled. But for the college that I'm technically in is part of the greater arts and sciences college. It's just like a subsection. So I'm technically already in it. So I don't have to transfer out of a different college to try and go into a different thing. The only thing is I might have to change my direction exactly for how many of certain courses I would be taking for a specific major or minor, whatever it would be.
Awesome. And we are getting Lauren in, so I am gonna have her introduce herself. Hi, Lauren.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming. It sounds like you have a busy evening. If you don't mind introducing yourself and a bit of background in terms of when you graduated from Milken and your major at GW and things you were involved in at GW as well.
Yes, of course. I apologize for my messy room. It's been a long day. I graduated from Milken 2011, and so GW 2015. I'm old. I'm Gabby's sister. She followed me to GW.
I love that.
And now the reason I'm late is because I'm getting my MBA at Boston University, and I have night classes, unfortunately, like Mondays until 9:15. So that's why I'm here. At GW though, I studied English and I minored in communications and creative writing.
Oh, sorry. So many other follow-up questions about that. Okay. I love this because you majored in English, but you're getting your MBA.
Mm.
I love that path for you. And I wish more of our students understood the value of learning to write and being well-read and like all of those things, and still being able to go on to graduate school of their choice, MBA or not. I cut you off when you were going to talk about the things you were involved in at GW, but I just got very excited. And
okay, that's
I'm
fine.
interested in your preparation at GW for business school and what that transition was like, how GW prepared you. I'll stop talking now.
Sure. I was very involved mostly in Greek life at GW. Gabby and I were in the same sorority. I loved it. It was very fun. I did what was the thing I led, Gab? The freshman you did it. I was like a leader for like the freshman orientation stuff. I helped freshmen.
DC Bound.
DC Bound, thank you.
Yeah.
Which is like a program where freshmen could come a week early and we do stuff around DC, which was really fun as well. But I actually just really loved English. Like Mr. Martin was my English teacher and he's the best person ever. And then I didn't know much about business. I went into sales for a few years after I graduated. I worked in DC, then I worked at Yelp for a few years, and my passions changed, and I recognized that like I had amazing soft skills from humanities and from sales. I could talk to anyone, but I didn't really know the basics of business. So business school just kind of was where my path led. When I graduated, I never would have assumed I'd be in business school, but I'm glad that it worked out that way. I think everyone's preferences change a lot. And I think it's also nice to work a little bit before you go straight off into business school as well, because I think knowing what you don't want to do is almost as important as knowing what you do want to do.
And she's starting a really awesome new job in May.
Oh,
Go on.
Thank you, Gab. I forgot. I didn't forget, but it's just been a long day. I will be working with EA Games. They're doing this rotational program that's very new, and this year they decided to take on an MBA. So they're taking on me, and I get to work with their marketing team. And they had this new group called Positive Play, which is about just making gaming a very safe space. So it's kind of like a combination of all those things. So I'm very excited for it.
That is awesome. You have your own personal cheerleader here too.
Yes, thanks.
So I guess going with Gabby, you talked about being a psych major, doing pre-health stuff, but what was your path from graduation to graduate school like, and how did GW help and prepare you for that?
I'm going to take your question one step backward because, and this was something that Jessie had said earlier before Lauren came on, was that I think everyone is nervous for college. Like if I can think way back when, going from high school to college and what's it going to be like? And maybe it is different, obviously being online now and how they have adjusted, but Milken really prepares you for college. You will be prepared for college by the time you get there. And Milken was very helpful. I noticed that very much so in comparison to a lot of my classmates that I like, just like Lauren, we give so much credit to Mr. Martin and his blue books. It's not in vain. It's for a reason. You're going to be able to write way better than you thought you would. You will be prepared for college. To that end, though, in answer to your original question, Laura and I were really different in our paths. I've been interested in medicine probably since high school. I had a series of knee injuries from playing volleyball at school that forced me over to the orthopedist a lot, and that's how I met my PA, who told me about what it was, and I was sold from there. So most of what I've been doing has been working towards that. Working as an EMT at GAW was definitely a good experience. I also needed that type of clinical experience in my resume to an extent to apply, along with a lot of other things. But I definitely think that having that really great, well-rounded education and doing something like psych rather than being a bio major was really valuable, because that's something that you just really can apply well to anything, particularly medicine, but I think it would have been applicable to any other path I would have chosen. And you just get a really good foundation. I know a lot of people don't really enjoy the general education type stuff that you have to do, all the freshman writing courses and some of the requirements you have to meet, like those first couple of years. They are annoying, I agree. But I do find myself now in like a very specialized program being like, oh yeah, I remember I took that class at GW. It was a humanities history class, but it was about like medicine and American culture. That was cool. And oh yeah, this like had to do with human sexuality. That definitely applies to like what I'm learning now. And things that kind of popped up here and there from something that wasn't medical and like a humanities type of setting. So I think that there's a lot, what's cool about like flipping through that course catalog, you're like, this has a cool name, like what's gonna be in that syllabus? And some of my favorite classes were the ones that weren't required. So it's always a really pleasant surprise to get something like that out of a school like GW, where you're like, oh, it's not just politics.
And Jesse, I mean, in picking your classes, it sounds like you've had a mix of graphic design and general ed courses. How have you found the general ed courses? Was it easy to find classes that were exciting?
Actually, yeah. I actually was about to actually pull up or like link, if that's okay, like
Please.
just like a general, like the course registrar that they have like available to the public. Because that itself is like a really like good like resource, just like to generally just like see what they provide as a whole. But yeah, like I mean, right now, actually, I think it's technically next week is when next course registration would be. So that being said, currently trying to make my schedule and piece that together. A lot of really interesting classes and some stuff as well that I've been recommended from friends. For example, I'm not that much of a math whiz in terms of like how adept I am. But I had a few friends that tried one or two different courses, and a few of them recommended a course that they specifically offer that was, I think it was math and politics. It's like an intro level course. Essentially, the gist of it is statistical like importance and like specifically how math or like stuff like that is used in politics, which is very much so a like on the nose thing to have in DC of all places. So like they're definitely trying to relate, what you are learning to the, like capital of the US where you're in politics everywhere around you. It's something that's meant to be like it's still a math course, but it's meant to be an easier math course for people who are not explicitly interested in that general like course of study. Same thing for like plenty of other sciences and the such. Like personally, I like science. I'm not very good at some of them, but I've always had a very deep interest in things like astronomy. They have an astronomy course that I'm hopefully going to be taking next semester. Same thing with a few other courses that I might be looking into as well. But there's a very wide variety of courses that they do offer. It just takes time to just try and find out how you can exactly like Tetris the whole thing so that you can get everything that you want to fit. If you can get everything you want to fit is the case. Sometimes like I had to take one course last semester that was not exactly what I wanted to do, but it was something that I was willing to take still.
Right. So a lot of choice, even if you're not getting exactly what you want, there's still flexibility. Lauren and Gabby, do you have recommendations for courses that Jesse should definitely take and our seniors, if they end up at GW, should definitely take?
That's a good question. Lauren, you go.
I really liked my English classes. So if you have to take one, my senior year, I'm blanking on the name of this professor, but she was like the coolest person ever. And she taught the best Shakespeare class. I hate that I don't remember her name. But I think also in general, like take something fun and like I graduate from grad school and I figured out today 3 weeks and I'm gonna miss learning. Like take that random class that you never thought you would, unless maybe it's like an instrument, then you have to start from scratch. Like there's so many interesting people to meet and connections to make. But there's all my friends really liked criminal justice. I didn't, but they said it changed their lives. So if they still offer that, that could be a good one.
Great.
Yeah, Jesse, are you in Corcoran because you're doing an art thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so your stuff is very specific. Awesome to you for
Mhm.
getting into that because those are some very tough programs. But yeah, for me, just because I didn't take so many outside the box classes because the extra classes I was doing to supplement in my elective time was more of those kind of pre-health classes I needed.
Yeah.
But within that, like I got to choose like what my elective ones that counted towards my major or minor or other pre-health things were some very cool psych classes for sure. And that's just me having an interest maybe, but also things that I wonder how they age, like psychology of sex differences. That was a really cool class I took. And then one that I had to take for part of my major, which I ended up loving and making a minor out of, and then working in that research lab was my cognitive neuroscience class. It was super interesting and definitely led me down into a probably a more serious interest in neurology for sure. So there's things that maybe you have to take or maybe not, and you're like, okay, we'll see how this goes, that you're like, that's surprisingly awesome. So just to keep an open mind. And like Lauren said, I mean, I still have a lot of school ahead of me, but learning is really fun and it's way better than working. And just make the most of it. Definitely make the most of it.
I do want to make sure that Adam and Josh are able to ask questions if they have them. So you guys can feel free to unmute or put them in the chat. I will obviously keep moderating if no other questions come up, but this is obviously really for you guys. What else was I going to ask? Well, let's get into like restaurant recommendations in DC and talk about, the other things. Like you've given a great picture of GW, the flexibility, the openness, and the funness, for lack of a better word, of college, and the intellectual side of it. But restaurant recommendations and also your perspective on Greek life too. Jesse, I don't know if you're interested in Greek life, but I'm interested in the role that it plays in the undergraduate experience there too. And I will let anybody jump in, whoever.
Well, I would love to jump in because I have a lot of friends who are graduating from BU right now who are moving to DC for like health sector management consulting roles. So I've been raving about restaurants. Baked and Wired is the best cupcake of your life in Georgetown. Everything on 14th Street is amazing. And what's also great about DC though, I just wanted to like plug it because I mean, granted, I've been in Boston during the pandemic. It hasn't been the full-fledged Boston life, but DC is, I think, like such a, when it comes to like very urban cities that are still like smaller and attainable, I think DC is perfect. Like people think of DC and they just think of politics. It's so much more than that. I lived like a mile and a half from campus once I graduated, and like and a lot of people really stay. So it's really, really strong community there, which is really nice. And every part of the city is so different, and it's really like been built up a lot since I left as well. So I think just DC is such a fun city. It's so walkable. It's so cultured. The museums are free, which is like not a thing anywhere else. And it's nice because when you're on campus at GW, you feel like you're on campus. It's not like BU, which is a strip, or NYU, which is like a maze. You feel like you're really like there's a campus vibe. But once you hop off, it's also like you're in the city and it's not big and scary. It's really nice. And I've also lived in New York as well. And I think DC is like a great introduction if you want to stay on the East Coast from the West Coast as well. It's very welcoming, and it's a very good size, and the people are still very nice. And Greek life I know has changed a lot since I left, but I had a blast. I think that it's tough for any city school to make a community. And so I loved the group of girls that I was tossed in with, especially because I know Rush was in the fall. I think it might have changed now. But it was just, I had friends outside of Greek life as well, a lot of them, but a lot of like-minded people, which is really nice. And some sororities and fraternities have houses. Again, I don't know if they still do, but that's a nice way to have community in an urban setting as well.
Thank you.
To quickly add to that, yeah, I'm pretty sure they still do have housing, and also for the walkability and also just like general friendliness, I will add that while I was there recently, I did see that they were actually taking out a lot of parking meters and adding a lot more bike lanes as well, specifically around the campus area. I didn't see it extending much further, but I'm pretty sure that's probably some sort of new initiative that they're probably doing, and as well because it's a campus, they're trying to make it a lot more pedestrian friendly. You know, college students generally just going to be walking around everywhere.
Are you gonna get a bike, Jesse?
I probably would, yeah.
Get a helmet.
We rent them. I
Yeah.
actually paid attention to it in DC, but like I'm sure it's a thing. Like you could just swipe scan your phone, then you just hop on, hop off. And yeah, it's so the best part of the East Coast in general is not needing a car. Like changes your life.
Admittedly, that is the one reason why I kind of went, because I love driving. Admittedly, I love it, but I wanted a place where I could actually walk everywhere because LA is so spread out. So a place where everything is still spread out, because while I was there for a week, I looked afterwards. My average walking like distance for like just traveling a day was easily like 6.5 miles of just like pure walking.
I always noticed that every time I came back from like a break, probably like a longer time, the first couple of weeks, I'm like, oh my God, why do I have blisters? My feet hurt. It's because you come back to LA and all you do is drive and sit on your butt in traffic. And then you go back to DC and you walk everywhere and it's great. And even if you need to get anywhere further, it's pretty good metro. And if you don't want a metro, nothing is so far away that it's a pretty decently priced Uber. So
yeah, the metro and public transportation's great, clean and reliable, which is not the same for most cities. Yeah, I could attest to that. So it's very, very nice and very convenient, and it's pretty safe too. Like a lot of cities, people probably wouldn't recommend taking the bus, but I would take the bus and the metro to get to work, and I felt very safe.
Yeah, and also for that, it's pretty cheap as well, the metro, and there's also a separate bus system that runs on the same routes. It's just a little bit less consistent. Like there's fewer buses total. It is a free bus system, and it's called the Circulator or Circular, and whole thing's free. It runs the same routes, just less often because it's free.
Great. You guys are just a walking ad. You're killing it. Talk to me about winter. How was that as LA girls?
It's fine. It's worse when you head north. So
Lauren progressively trekked further and further north, so she knows colder.
I've gotten closer to Canada every few years. But DC is very fine. The summers are really sticky. Like very humid, a lot of rain, but like the seasons are really gorgeous. But if anyone's scared of snow, like DC is probably the best place to be that still has it before it gets too warm. It's not bad.
Yeah, what's almost nice about that is because DC gets snow so inconsistently, they don't really know how to deal with it. So you're guaranteed a snow day versus if you were going to be like in Syracuse, no chance you'll get a snow day because it's super normal. But I had some really fun snow days like on the National Mall because the snow is piled up in the street because DC doesn't know what to do with it. But it's fun. It's kind of like that little snapshot of kind of wintry school that you want without it being all the time. That's for sure. But you'll get a coat. You'll be fine.
And then you mentioned, Lauren, that a lot of people stay. How has like the GW alumni network stuck with you? You know, if you're not that involved in it, I'm not going to be mad, but I am interested in what that's been like for you post-graduation.
Yeah. I think the biggest bittersweet thing about me coming back to California in a few weeks is that like my whole adult foundation is in the East Coast, and I've met some really amazing people. GW does take internships pretty seriously. A lot of people, especially if you're getting involved on the Hill, you usually have something set up your senior or going into senior year, and that often leads to a full-time role. If you're interested in consulting as well, that could be a thing that keeps you there as well. But I didn't want either of those things. My job just kind of worked out. But people from GW, there actually are a lot of people from LA or California in general, but there's also a lot of Boston and New York, New Jersey area. So whenever I moved into those cities, I always had people I knew, always like very like headstrong, like very motivated individuals. I think GW has a really, really motivated student body. Everyone's involved in like at least 3 orgs. They have some leadership experience. Like people just like to do it. It's very high energy. And that's really like what I love to see. Like at the time, I obviously didn't know that I would be going to business school, but I knew I wanted to like be doing something impactful, and I wanted to be doing it quickly. And so GW, like, it's a very fun school. You could still party and stuff, but it's not going to be like the bigger state schools where that's all you could do. Like there's a lot of opportunities on campus, off campus, and people do like to stick around in DC because one, it's really easy to kind of transition into that and live right off campus, or because DC is so small, but also like there's so many opportunities, which is really nice because I feel like a lot of my friends who went to other schools, you go to school and then you have to come back to California, which is nothing bad about that. But it's nice. It was really nice to have the option to stick around and have job prospects in the place that I already really liked. So I think that's pretty rare with a lot of different cities, or with DCs especially.
Mm-hmm.
That was long-winded, but I hope.
That's great. And Gabby, have you like maintained a connection to GW folks in LA, or what has that been like?
I mean, I don't know about so much of an alumni network, but I am still very close with many of my friends, and a lot, like Lauren said, a lot of people did stay at this point. I mean, my friends in particular, and my closest friends from college, for the most part, were girls that we were in the sorority with, came from all over. They were from, my closest friends are from New York, the Boston area, and Washington State. So yeah, and I'll tell this fun story because I think this kind of speaks to what Lauren said about GW. Is, well, one, that not that just because people are super involved with stuff doesn't mean that you have to be in a million things. It's a really great option, but I know, like, for me, hearing that going in, it was kind of overwhelming. I was like, but when am I gonna study? But you still have plenty of time to do all those things and pick what you want. But I will say this, is that I remember very clearly when I was graduating, and it's big crazy week, everything's super fun going out, and one of my best friends from here, she came in, surprised me, and came to graduation, and we were going out those nights before, and we go to like the fun bar where everyone goes like the week of graduation, and she's like, why is the news on in a sports bar? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the kind of place DC is, and that's the kind of like interaction you're gonna have with people, like college fun, all the good stuff that goes along with it, but you're in DC with all of these super driven intellectual people, and it's definitely something that is unique to DC for sure. But to answer your initial question, yes, I'm still very close with all of my closest friends from school, and everyone has really been involved in something very different. My closest friend, who's the only one who's still in DC now, she works for CBS News. She's a producer for the nightly news. So like she has to be there for that reason. But and then my other friend is doing a PhD in something having to do with like fish at like University of Washington. One is working in New York at a big consulting company. So like everyone has different interests and they've excelled. So it really runs the gamut of what you can do and the foundation that you can get. And I definitely think that to that end, that has kept me impressed and kept me connected with those people.
Jesse, if you could give current juniors or seniors one piece of advice, given where they are in life in the process, what would it be?
It's just a little bit further, and that it honestly doesn't really matter in terms of like where you go, what ends up happening. It'll be the right place. And if not, you go through a few months or a year, and you're like, all right, I don't like it. Well, there you go. You just figured out that maybe it wasn't the right place. Doesn't really matter. You choose a place first, and if it's because you seemingly like it, that's it. I chose GW. I felt like there was a good community, and when I was able to visit once before everything started to go crazy, it seemed like a really nice place, and the community just seemed to be very like pretty tightly knit overall. Like what Lauren and Gabby both said, like everyone is very driven and very involved, but that doesn't have to be the case. I personally don't have much of an intent in joining many groups, if really any. I've already got like a really large friend group, so that as a whole can kind of be a nice substitute for that almost. And obviously, they're not wrong though that the internship scene is very much so heavily in that whole thing. But for the advice for right now, I'd say is look for the place that's right for you, and and you'll end up finding it. I think that's essentially that's it, honestly. If it
Great.
feels right, it feels right.
Yeah. Questions from any of our current Milken students? If not, I'm going to let these lovely folks get back to their evenings. Lauren and Gabby, if you have any parting words of advice, I'm very open to those too. But
Miss Schreiber,
yeah.
sorry, I actually do have one question. I think it was Lauren. You said something about criminal justice.
Yes. What about it?
No, I was just curious. You said that it wasn't for you, or you said that your friends liked it, but you didn't. Did you actually take that and dropped out, or?
No, I took it. I remember it was like on a Wednesday in the last class of the day, and I actually would probably love it now. I would love it now. But obviously being in DC, there are a ton of classes that are similar to that. And the teachers are brilliant. I think my personal interests have changed a lot. I never thought that like Lauren at GW would never think Lauren 7 years later will be taking an accounting class. So I definitely would enjoy it now. Just for whatever reason, I think I was just too tired at the end of the day to appreciate it. And it's also in college, it's pretty rare to have 3 classes on one day. It's hysterical because I'm Milken. I don't know. I forget if you guys are still like have to learn Hebrew and Jewish law, but I had like 7 or 8.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. But yeah, we take so many classes, which is insane. And then you walk into college and you're like, I've had 1 class today. I need to take a nap. So, but yes, I would encourage you to take any and all classes. You never know what will even like change your interests. Yeah, there's no valid reason that's why I didn't enjoy it. I think I was just tired.
Think about the timing of your classes. Yeah.
Yes, but my friends all really liked it, and they weren't majoring or minoring in it either. But GW has really cool classes. Like I think it's very unique to the city that I could have that opportunity.
Something to add to that is that for a lot of these classes, these teachers are experts in their field, and they are kind of teaching as an aside. They are involved in many other things. Like you can have people that are doing this class, but normally like they consult over at the Capitol, or they work at the NIH, or work at a think tank. Like they're, for the most part, like teaching is like a fun extra thing for them. And it's not their main gig, but because they're experts in their field, which is something very unique that you get at a hub like DC.
Jesse, I see you nodding your head vigorously.
Yeah, I was gonna add as well, more so because of just like something just like felt right for saying this. It's a thing that everyone always says, but especially for GW because of just the variety of how many like specialized people there are. And like Gabby just said, like these are people that have spent so much time in their fields that this is more so just in a side job where like they want to pass on their knowledge. Find things that are cool. Even if it's like something that you feel like, well, I mean, like, you're like, okay, well, maybe this gets like a credit out of the way. Look for something, even if it gets 1 credit, if it doesn't get any credits, try and just find something that you think might sound interesting and that might just pique your interest in some way. Even if it's not something that you're like, oh, I might change to that eventually, so maybe I should try that. Just try something. There's a lot of interesting things there. I took last semester a German literature course, which I was like, that sounds kind of fun, and the teacher like has some good reviews, and I feel like this would be a fun thing to do. I've wanted to go to Europe and do a little bit of stuff, so just to get a bit more background, just around like some sort of cultural aspects of things. And it was a phenomenal course. I loved it. It was a lot of work, but it was definitely something that like I even recommended to a friend this semester, and he ended up taking the follow-up course for it. So it's definitely like there's a lot of classes that you'll just see and you might be thinking, I don't know if that's for me, or maybe that's something that I'll try later. Take note of it though. Like take whatever classes just might be interesting, because there's a lot of interesting people who are teaching there.
I love these parting words about trying things, the expertise, the like level of intellectualism that you're getting in the classroom. And I am sure if any of our students have follow-up questions, if you guys are open to it, we can always put you guys in touch with these wonderful alums. This chat is going to be available online as well. But thank you guys so much for your time, especially given the other demands of things that you're doing. And Jesse, thank you. I mean, it's important that our current students are getting your perspective too. And it's clear you've like gone all in, and I'm so happy. So there's another chat right after this at 7. So current students, if we're coming back, I'm gonna close the room and just reopen it, refill my water. But thank you all so much for your time. Good luck at EA. Good luck. Are you guys gonna live together now that you're both in LA?
No.
Okay. Well,
Gabby won't ever live with me. I've tried. That's not true. She lives in Pasadena, and I'll be living in West Hollywood.
My program is class from 8 to 5 every day. So
I just want to be close to you.
I know, but no, you'll have your dog. You'll be fine.
Hopefully so. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, or even about like what I don't think an English and creative writing major and minor could be any more different than business school. So if anyone is like hesitant about like, oh my God, I'm going to college and like this is going to be my life's legacy and everything I do depends on it, like that's not the case. And if anyone wants to talk to me about that as well, I'd be more than happy to talk about that.
Yeah, same thing here. Like also, like if you guys need any like general information, or if you guys would like to meet some people like other than people like who are our alum, like I have a bunch of friends who'd probably love to talk, and a few like links that I can send you for you to join some things, and people and if you just put a message in a chat, people start answering a lot of questions.
awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Have a great, Gabby, we're going to say something else.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I remember Laura and I did this last year as well, and yeah, I was like, I don't think anyone had many questions, but I know that like for me personally, like not everyone knows what like PA is. It's physician assistant, and I remember there was a very sweet girl that was, I don't know if she was a senior or a junior, and she was like, I'm curious about that. And so if anyone wants to talk about it or anything, just like about the just cluster that is doing medical things and this kind of track, by all means, please send them our way.
Awesome. I will. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.